Nobody saw it coming, including you. That is the specific, slightly disorienting quality of what is building in your immediate future, not the gradual arrival of something that has been visibly developing, not the culmination of a process that gave sufficient warning of where it was headed. Something that assembles itself quickly in the particular compressed window of a very short period from components that did not appear to be in the configuration required to produce this. And then suddenly they are, and suddenly you are somewhere entirely different from where you were standing the moment before. That is what overnight means when something genuinely happens overnight, not a slow progression that finally becomes undeniable. A threshold crossed in a single passage of time, between sleeping and waking, between one version of your life and the next, with a speed that leaves the mind still processing the before while the body is already standing in the after. I want to begin with the surprise, because the title names it and the quality of the surprise matters for everything that follows. There is a category of surprise that comes from completely unexpected quarters, from sources you were not watching, through channels you were not monitoring, producing an outcome you had not constructed any version of in your private planning for how things might unfold. This is that category. What is coming toward you is not the surprise of something you hoped for finally arriving. It is the surprise of something you had not yet hoped for because you did not know it was possible. Because the specific configuration of circumstances required to produce it did not appear to exist until it suddenly did. You are going to receive something you did not know to want. And in the receiving of it, you are going to understand immediately and completely why it is exactly what you have actually needed all along. Let me describe what I am seeing. A figure standing in an ordinary space, ordinary quality of light, ordinary texture of a regular day, nothing in the atmosphere suggesting that what is about to happen is about to happen. The kind of scene that looks in retrospect like the last frame of the before, unremarkable in the moment, significant only in hindsight when the after has arrived to give it context, and then something enters the frame from a direction that was not being watched. Not dramatically, not with the kind of entrance that announces itself as significant, with the quiet, almost mundane quality of things that change everything, arriving in forms that look, initially, like nothing in particular. But it is not nothing in particular. What enters the frame carries consequences that are going to ripple outward from the moment of its arrival in ways that take time to fully trace, but that are already, in the instant of the arrival, completely real. The before just ended. Let me speak to the 0 to 100 quality of this, because it is specific and it deserves its own examination. There is a version of progress that is linear, that moves from point to point in a sequence that is visible and trackable, that gives you the comfort of being able to see where you came from and project where you are going. Most of the time, that is how things move, and there is nothing wrong with it. And then there are the moments that are not linear, the moments that skip, that move from a point that appeared to be nowhere near 100 to 100 in a compression of time that bypasses all the intermediate steps. That do not build through gradual accumulation, but through some specific confluence of factors that, when they align, produce results that are disproportionate to the apparent state of the situation immediately prior. What is coming is that second kind. Not because you have been doing nothing, because the nothing you have been doing has been the wrong frame for what has actually been accumulating. What appeared from the outside, perhaps even from your own inside view, to be a period of limited visible progress has actually been the specific, necessary, precisely calibrated accumulation of conditions. The conditions have met. And when conditions that have been accumulating meet the catalyst that triggers their result, the result does not arrive gradually. It arrives at 100. It arrives at 100. I want to describe what it feels like to be in the period just before this kind of arrival, because I think recognizing it as the period you are in right now will change how you experience the days between now and when this lands. It feels like nothing is happening. That is the paradox of the period immediately before a 0 to 100 shift, because the accumulation that is producing the conditions is not visible. It is happening in the background, in the infrastructure of the situation, in the specific quiet work of factors aligning that does not announce itself as alignment and progress. From the surface, it simply looks like more of the same, more of the ordinary texture of a life that is functioning but not visibly accelerating, more of the quiet continuation that you have been doing without clear evidence that the continuing is producing anything in particular. And underneath that surface, the conditions finalizing. The last pieces settling into the configuration that triggers the result. You are in those final moments of quiet right now. And the quiet is about to end in a way that will make the preceding quiet make sudden, complete, retrospective sense. I want to speak to the viral glow up specifically because it is the most visible and the most immediate expression of what is shifting, and I want to give it the honesty it deserves. Something about you is becoming visible to a much wider circle than has been seeing you. Not because you changed what you are, because something aligned, because the specific combination of who you have become and what you have been building and the moment the world is in has produced a sudden, almost involuntary expansion in how far your presence and your energy and your work reach. Visibility arrives in different forms. For some of you, this is literal. Something you created or said or shared or did lands in front of people who were not previously in your audience and produces a response that amplifies itself, that generates its own momentum, that creates a reach that was not manufactured or strategically engineered, but that emerged organically from something genuinely resonant, connecting with the people it was made for. For others, this is relational. The specific, sudden quality of people noticing you, people in your daily world and in your extended world, in a way that is different from how you have been noticed before. Not a single person, a cluster, as though something about you has crossed a threshold of visibility simultaneously for multiple people who had been in proximity to you without the full picture of what you are. They are getting the full picture. For still others, this is professional. The glow up that lands in the specific material dimension of what you are seen to be capable of and what you are invited to be part of and what opportunities organize themselves around you. In all three cases, the same mechanism. You did not get louder. The world got quieter in the right way for what you have always been, to finally be fully audible. I want to describe what the overnight quality of this actually feels like from the inside, because nobody warns you about this specific experience, and I think knowing what to expect will help you stay grounded when it arrives. It feels strange before it feels good. Not bad, not wrong, but strange in the specific way that rapid shifts in your external reality feel strange when your internal experience of yourself has not yet updated to match. When the world is responding to you as though you are something different from what you have been experiencing yourself as, And the gap between their response and your self-perception creates a quality of almost surreal disorientation. You are going to feel slightly behind yourself for a moment, looking at what is happening around you with a small lag, still partly in the version of your life that existed before this, and watching the new version arrive in real time without quite having caught up to being fully inside it yet. That lag is normal. It is the specific benign disorientation of someone whose external reality has moved faster than their internal narrative could follow. The internal narrative will catch up. It always does. And when it does, when the story you tell yourself about who you are and what is possible for you updates to match what is actually happening, something settles into place with a solidity that the version before this could not quite achieve, because it is real now, not hoped for, not theoretical, real and present and already producing its effects in the actual world. Tell me in the comments if this reading is resonating, if something in the way I have described this matches the specific quality of what you have been sensing building without quite being able to name it. If the lag I described, the slight disorientation of being between versions of your reality, feels like something you can already feel at the edges of your current experience, I want to know how this is reaching you. Now, the shocking news. I want to deliver this part of the reading with the same directness and the same refusal to soften it that the title's use of the word shocking deserves. Something is going to be confirmed that you have suspected, but that you have not been certain enough of to act on. Not a new piece of information exactly, the official arrival of something that has been unofficially, quietly, in the background, true for a period of time, but that has not yet been formalized or named or brought into the kind of concrete, unambiguous, holdable reality that changes what is available to you. It becomes that kind of real, and the shock is not the content. The shock is the speed of the formalizing, the specific, almost breathtaking quality of something going from not yet to undeniably yes in a compressed window. The particular experience of receiving a confirmation that your intuition was correct, that what you were reading in a situation was an accurate reading, that you were not imagining or projecting or hoping too aggressively into something that was not there. You were seeing correctly. And the confirmation of that correct seeing delivered with the speed and the directness of a last minute arrival is what produces the shock. I want to speak to what the last minute quality of all of this means, because the title names it and it is not incidental. Things that arrive at the last minute have a particular energetic signature. They arrive when the ordinary timeline for their arrival has been missed, when the moment they should have come has passed without them, and the window they were supposed to come through has technically closed, when the person waiting for them has, in some honest corner of themselves, begun to recalibrate expectations toward not receiving, and then they arrive, not because the window reopened, because something that moves at a different speed than the ordinary processes were moving at, something that was not following the timeline that had been projected for it, completed its journey and arrived anyway. Last minute does not mean barely in time. Last minute means in exactly the time it actually needed, regardless of what timeline had been assumed. And what arrives last minute tends to carry with it a specific quality of recognition, not just of the thing that arrived, but of the waiting itself, of the specific, unglamorous, often invisible patience that kept the possibility open past the point where closing it would have been more comfortable. That recognition, the universe's acknowledgement that you kept the possibility open, is woven into the fabric of what arrives. That recognition, the universe's acknowledgement that you kept the possibility open, is woven into the fabric of what arrives. I want to give this one more specific texture because I think it matters. The people who kept the door open, who maintained the possibility past the comfortable point, who refused to let the timeline that appeared to have been missed become the permanent conclusion, those people receive last-minute arrivals with a specific quality of understanding that people who close the door do not have access to, because they know what it costs to keep it open. They know the specific, private, largely unwitnessed work of continuing to believe in something when the evidence for it had thinned to almost nothing, when the reasonable self-protective response would have been to update your expectations and move on and stop allocating the specific quality of interior hope that open doors require. You kept it open. And the last minute arrival carries that keeping within it, recognizes it, is in some sense a direct response to it. The timing is not accidental. It arrives last minute because last minute is when what you have been maintaining is most clearly demonstrated, when the decision to keep the possibility open in the absence of encouragement is most fully visible, when the specific quality of your faith in something that had not yet proven itself earns the proof it was always going to earn, just later than expected and more completely than could have been anticipated. I want to speak to something about who you are that this reading is pointing toward without directly naming. You have been underestimated, not dramatically, not in the way of someone who has been actively dismissed or deliberately sidelined, in the quieter, more common way of someone whose full capacity has not been visible in the context available to it, whose range has not been testable in environments that were not quite the right size, whose actual ceiling has not been encountered because the heights available in the current arrangement have not approached it. What is coming gives you the right context in which the capacity that has not been fully visible becomes visible, in which the underestimation encounters its correction, not through argument or demonstration or any effortful proving of the point, but through the simple, undeniable, self-evident quality of someone operating in a space that fits them, being witnessed, operating in a space that fits them. The fitting is what produces the glow up, not a performance of being better than you are. The simple, radical, completely unmanufactured expression of what you actually are in the space that actually matches it. Let me describe the period just after all of this lands, because I think the after deserves as much attention as the arrival. There is going to be a quality of recalibration required, not of who you are, of how you hold who you are in relation to how it is now being reflected back, of updating the internal story to match the external reality, of allowing yourself to fully inhabit the version of your life that is now actual, rather than continuing to relate to it as something that is still becoming. It has become, and the specific, necessary, sometimes surprisingly difficult work of receiving that arrival as complete rather than as another step in an ongoing process is what the days after the overnight shift require. You are going to need to let yourself have arrived without the qualification, without the part of you that wants to keep searching for the catch or maintaining the familiar humility of someone who is still in the middle of becoming something, without the protective modesty that has been appropriate for the period of building, but that becomes a form of self-diminishment once the building has produced its result. You built something. It has arrived. Stand in it. As we close this reading, one final image, you. Not in the before, not in the ordinary space of the last frame I described at the beginning, in the after, standing in something that feels different from the outside, but that from the inside feels surprisingly like simply being yourself. Because the glow up and the overnight shift and the viral visibility and the shocking confirmation, all of it produces something that looks from the outside like a dramatic change and that feels from the inside like the arrival of something that was always supposed to be there, like finally fitting somewhere, like the specific, quiet, enormously satisfying experience of the right context, meeting the right person. That person is you. That context is arriving. Nobody saw it coming. But looking back from where you will be standing when the dust has settled and the overnight shift has become the new normal and the last minute arrival has been absorbed into the texture of your daily life, everyone will understand that it was always inevitable. The conditions were always building. The result was always going to be this. The only question was when, and the answer, it turns out, was now.